Welcome back, everybody. We had a little mess up on the thing that was on the bottom that was coming up next. We are not doing that chapter yet. We are doing If Death Were a Choice Instead of a Wrongness, Could You Then Fully Live? And I am joined by Dr. Melissa Mahon, Dr. Anthony Mattis, and Ms. Wendy Mulder. Thank you guys for being here. So all of you have experienced, so funny to go from parenting to death. Here we are. Okay. Okay. All of you have experienced death in a different way and have used the access tools to actually create with it and be a different possibility here on planet Earth. Death is supposed to be sad and the end of something and, take you into a mourning state. And a lot of you have chosen to live after experiencing death in your lives. So I would love to hear from you guys. Where did you get to where you are today? And how did the tools help you? Wendy, I know you wrote a couple books on death, correct? Do you want to talk a little bit about how you were inspired to choose that and what got you there? I can't hear Wendy. Can you guys hear Wendy? Are you unmuted, babe? Okay. While you figure that out, can someone support Wendy in getting on? Anthony, I'm going to jump over to you. Okay. A lot of us. Okay. Would you tell a little bit about how death came into your life and what showed up for you and how you use the tools?
Well, it's a multi-faceted and level question for me because death has been a thing in my life since I was a little boy, actually. This whole mystery of life after death.
Hey, Miss Wendy. Miss Wendy.
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm having other people from the news station interjecting here. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Cool. Yeah, but I heard Brett in my ear.
Okay. Go ahead.
Now I know what it feels like to be on the news or something like that, And they're like, take him off. He's saying too much. No. Anyway, yeah, no. So death has always been a thing for me in my life. My grandmother I was 5 years old when she died, and it was a very big Italian dramatic thing at the funeral. So I always had questions around death, but so I can go anywhere with this particular topic. But about 12 years ago, my wife had committed suicide, and she had struggled with bipolar disorder. And it was interesting because when I first met her, she pretty much told me her whole life story within the first 10 minutes and that she had mental illness. And I'm like, oh, I can fix it. I'm a metaphysician, and you need to come to my book clubs. And this was before Access. And so 10 years later, she lost the battle. She decided to take herself out and leave. And with all the work that both her and I put in as far as self-help work and religions and philosophies and gurus and you name it, we did it. I was really, really disappointed and I was really lost. So I was like, there's got to be something out there. I was on my knees praying to God. There's got to be something out there that can change the face of mental illness. And aside from that particular tragic event, because I'm raising 3 kids by myself at this point, I was like, my life kind of sucks. Even aside from that, it's like I was struggling in every facet of my life. And so 9 months later, I learned about Access Consciousness, the bars. And it was about 2.5 years from that point where I finally got to my first certified facilitators class. And it was about 3 days in. And I remember walking back from lunch, and I love this chapter. I mean, it's completely fitting because, Dane talks about how if death was a choice instead of a wrongness, could you then fully live? And I remember reading that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Come on, man. Because my job was to always save people. My job was to keep people alive and for them to avoid death, right? And so I'll never forget the conversation we had before she took her life. And she's like, I don't want you and the kids to deal with this all the time. And I remember saying to her, I'm like, I'll deal with one bad year for 5.5 good ones, because that's how long she was actually stable and sane and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so she made the choice the next day. And then so fast forward 3.5 years, I'm at certified facilitators. I'm walking back from class or from lunch on the way to class, and literally my knees buckled. And I fell onto one knee. And in that moment, it was like the entire world around me, from the animals to the trees and the plants and to the pavement where the cars drive on, were literally like pulsating. And in that moment, I just had this pouring down of tears of gratitude, because I got to see the gift in her choice. I got to perceive, like, energetically, the space that she actually created for the kids and I. Now, this is not to say that suicide's the answer or the solution. I'm not, you know what I mean? But it's like, when you are on this journey of consciousness, it's like, what if there aren't any wrongs or rights or good or bad, you know? And so that was the first time where I actually perceived the gift in her choice, as opposed to just the tragedy of it. Now, also in that moment, I realized that access, because the first 2.5 years was just about getting me past my suffering, getting me past just my entire life of trauma and drama. And I realized that day that the tools of access are way more, there's so much more available to you than just getting you through your pain and suffering. But there was actual, like, you could actually have a life where you wake up happy and you're thriving, not just surviving. And it's not just about getting you through your pain, but there's actual palpable magic. There's a grand and glorious adventure that's actually possible for your life and living. And so everything that's showing up in my life today, right now, in the last 11 years, is because of the tools of access consciousness. And if it wasn't for the tools, I have no idea where I would be right now. I have no idea where my children would be right now. At that time, back then, they were 11, 9, and 3. And now they're 22, 20, and 14. And the tools became a regular part of our lives. And it got us through those dark moments, those dark times, you know, because that was tough. They lost their mom. But we had the tools. We laughed. We giggled as a family. We would have belly laughs at the access consciousness classes. You know, we would giggle, and it was just beautiful. And we got to use the tools when we would come home from after, you know, a seminar. So it's something that not only got us through that difficult time, but the kids got to see their father start to thrive in life, and they got to witness that even if you went through something horrific, you could actually still have an amazing life. And that's what the tools were a gift for so many reasons, but we got to see truly where that crazy phrase that we learn in Access, like it says in the book, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing's the opposite of what it appears to be. And I have no doubt in my mind, could we have saved her life if we had the tools before that? Absolutely. But I didn't know about Access until afterwards. You know, and I believe that she actually led me to the work, to be honest with you. And she sort of made herself present a lot in this journey. And she got me to look at, like, look, you can change a lot of people's lives, especially people struggling with mental illness, with these tools. You can't be in the closet anymore. Because like the first 3 years, I was sort of like an in the closet access facilitator, you know, and then I found out, like, you know what, fuck that. The results are undeniable. How can I be in the closet? Gotta let the world know about this. So that's sort of what it's been for me with the whole death thing.
You are creating so much, and definitely letting the world know, and to see how you are thriving and how your children are showing up and thriving as well has been a huge gift to witness, because by all accounts, the world would give you permission to never be happy again.
Totally.
And I think, you know, and it's really easy to, like, permiss yourself, if you will, and go, you know what, it's over. Here's the tragedy that I now live from. And a lot of us, like how we start every sentence when we've gone through some sort of loss like that. And your willingness to keep going and thriving has contributed to so many. And I just want to say personal thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, ladies. I'm going to jump up to you, Melissa. I know I was in creation with you this year when you announced that your mom had passed. And one of the reasons why I jumped to having you on this conversation was that you weren't doing any of the trauma and drama that most of us do when we lose a parent. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, and you didn't seem to stop living. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that was like for you and what tools you went to make choices like that.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I was messing with my camera, so I didn't know if it would do weird things. So, when my mom passed, my mom had Alzheimer's for a long time. And it was one of those things that, as wrong in this reality as that is, I had been asking for her to choose whatever was going to work the greatest for her for a long time. And when she finally chose to leave, it was sort of like this beautiful celebration of everything that she had been in my life. And at that time, she was, hadn't been living anymore. She was in a nursing home. She wasn't talking. She wasn't eating. She wasn't, she had already sort of stopped living. And so I really had been asking questions around what else was possible for her to choose beyond that. And when she did finally leave, it was sort of this beautiful, she gets to be free now. So for me, it was so different. And I know that in this reality, there was this, I was so aware of the judgment that I wasn't in trauma and drama and I wasn't a mess. But at that point, I had been doing access and using that tools of access for, almost 5 years. And I was really in a state of interesting point of view with all of it, where I just got to be an allowance of her and her choice. And it was really different and it was really beautiful. So I was so grateful. And the other thing I was so grateful to have is, that tool of who does this belong to? Because I was so aware of my siblings' reaction and the rest of the world's reaction and how you're supposed to act when a parent dies. And I was so grateful to be able to acknowledge that all the things that came up, most of them didn't belong to me. And they were so much the idea of what you're supposed to show up as in this reality. And so, yeah, I certainly had my moments, but it was such a gift to see death differently. And, the other thing that came up for me is that when she had Alzheimer's, we didn't really get to talk. We used to talk every day on the phone before she, kind of lost her mind. And those last maybe 5 years, I really hadn't had a conversation with my mom. And so I knew that once she wasn't embodied any longer, it would actually give me a different possibility to communicate with her. And, this sort of gets into the talk to the entities tools, but I was actually on a talk to the entities class with Shannon O'Hara when my mom passed. And so I got to it was just an amazing gift to be facilitated and facilitate my mom. I think I had a telecall 3 days after she passed with Shannon. And so we were able to clear all the drug stuff that had been given to her and actually allow her to have peace with knowing she didn't have a body anymore. And now she pops in here and there and I get to communicate with her in a different way than I could when she was alive. So, it was, for me, it was a gift all around.
That is so beautiful and also so different and such an invitation to look at death from all these different sides and also have tools after death. Access Consciousness has tools to live amazing lives and then also to go beyond death. What? So how did we get so lucky to be here today talking about how we can be us even with this energy or this invitation of being with the end of life and what goes beyond it. And I know, how are we doing on sound, Wendy? Do I get to hear you now?
Wendy, try I would say try unplugging your headphones and see if that ends up working.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, thank you, Brett.
Oh, good. Hey.
So speaking of all different sides of death, Wendy, I know that you have experienced it from all different sides and written books about it. So what would you like to share with us today as far as your unique awareness around death?
Yeah, well, there's just I've always known that there's a different possibility with grief and death and dying, and just it's so there's just such a different reality available. And it was so exciting, like coming across Access Consciousness, and it was like, oh yes, it just is what it is. And and the gratitude of we're still alive. Whoever's passed is, their body's gone, but they as the being is still living on. And I've just had some amazing conversations with Gary and Dane of just acknowledging that beautiful gift of, we're alive. Like every day is precious. And what if we didn't have to, what if it didn't have to be difficult? And what if it was okay to receive something different? And I think that's one of the things, like I've seen people die, and I've seen, I lost my husband, as you know, went out on a motorbike and never returned. And it was, these tools are just so magical in the sense of the beautiful essence of living each moment to the most and walking and talking that. And I think my first book, Learning from Grief, I hadn't even actually come across Access at that stage. But then when I did, was Dying Happy, The Gift of Choice, I was like, yes, it is truly possible. It is truly possible to live. And the other thing I just want to say is what really has made sense for me is the more gratitude we can have for that person that has passed, the more that we choose to live our life, how much beautiful energy does that go through to that person? And it's never, ever made sense to me when someone dies or when someone's dying to be contracted and sad and suffering, because that energy is not a contribution to that person who's gone or to that person who's dying. Like, we are this amazing gift of so much joy. We have so much, and why wouldn't we change the sadness to the gratitude? To the gratitude, and the energy of that is truly magical. So yes, it really is time. It really is time for us to know what we know, and I'm just so I'm excited for for what can show up, in the next 100 years of the sense that it can be ease for someone to die. And that we can actually be, like as I say to my two sons, live your life, guys. Enjoy your living, because that's going to be your greatest contribution to your dad. That he knows that you're happy, and that you can flow that energy through to him, and he can choose whatever he's choosing now.
Yeah. Well, one of the gifts, Wendy, that you just be is when you experienced that which most people would go to so much grief and separation. Like, I saw you there being this gift to others to heal what they thought they had to heal in you. And you and I had a conversation on a podcast, and it lit me up in such a way of something being truly possible beyond what we have been programmed about something like death. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you again. Thank you all for joining today. I have one more question, And I would just want to see who wants to jump in and play with me. But what does it look like to truly live and choose living like as a verb, rather than the avoidance of death that a lot of people are choosing? Like, what are the difference between those two energies? And Anthony, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you go first with that one for me?
Yes, I'd be happy to. For me, I'll say the one tool that actually helped me to get into that space of living, which was the question of, if you had 10 seconds to live the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Yeah.
And that really got me in the now moment. It got me out of grieving of the past and worrying about the future. It's like, what would I like to choose right now if I only had 10 seconds? So it was like the choices that I seemed to make along the way after she passed, it's like I made sure that they mattered. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I was choosing for me, but in choosing for me, I was also creating greater for everyone around me. And that was because of that one question. It got me to look at like what was going to create, let's say, greater and a more expansive, living for not just me, but for the kids.
That's awesome. Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about that tool of 10-second choice and expand a little bit on it for those who haven't heard about it before?
Sure. So living in 10-second increments is kind of like what Anthony was just saying. It's like, if you have 10 seconds to make a choice to live the rest of your life, what would you choose? And it's like, you can choose anything in 10 seconds. You can choose to stand up. You can choose to sit down. You can choose to take a walk. You can choose to live your greatest life. You can choose to ask questions about like, okay, if I was creating anything, if I could create my life as anything, what would I really like to have as my life? And everything I've decided isn't possible if I didn't have to choose from that space. And I could actually start asking questions of like, what is truly possible that I've never allowed the possibility to be? If I could choose that right now, would you choose it? But so many people live from fear. And they're like, well, I might choose that, but it might not work out. I might like end up feeling like that was the wrong choice. So then they do this paralyzed thing where they won't actually choose what would work for them because they're so afraid of it going wrong. And so one of the things I play with a lot is like, what if there was no wrong choice? What if every single choice creates awareness? So even if you make a choice and you're like, well, that didn't turn out how I thought that was going to go. What if that wasn't wrong? What if it just gave you more awareness to choose what else you'd like to choose in the next 10 seconds? But people do this thing all the time where they think that making a choice is the same thing as making a decision, which is like where you're stuck. And it's like, I'm now deciding this as though it's unchangeable. But choice isn't that. It's I'm choosing this right now for this 10 seconds. I can choose to be angry in this 10 seconds. And in the next 10 seconds, I can choose something else. So it's really playing with, if you could just choose anything and just keep choosing, then you never get stuck in a conclusion or a decision, but you actually have infinite choice and infinite possibilities.
I love that. And the 10-second increment living is really, it gets you out of your monkey mind, because you don't even, if you only had 10 seconds, truly only had 10 seconds to live and the clock was counting down, you probably wouldn't like look at your money problem. You probably wouldn't try to fix that thing with your mom. You know what I mean? You would just be like, okay, 10 seconds. What would I choose? What's in front of me? What's available here right now? And I love that you guys both brought that up on this chapter, because truly it is an invitation to fully live. And from fully living, if death is a choice you wanted to make, you could choose it. So tossing it over to you, Wendy, we've got a couple minutes left. And one of the things I would love to hear more from you about is the elemental of gratitude and how it changes things. And so I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what you know about gratitude, whether it's within this chapter or just in life in general. How do you use gratitude to create?
Wow, that's a cool question. How can you use gratitude to create? Oh my God, it is such a beautiful energy. And it's the universe, it's the earth. It's this magical energy that takes you away from all of the doubt master, the mind. It's a gift to your beautiful body, to the people around you. It like you being gratitude, and that energy just flowing through to the people around you. They can't hold on to the pain, or they can't hold on to the difficulty. It just oozes. It just oozes out of you, and it's sort of like the energy of the earth and like the energy of the universe. It just allows for so many more possibilities to be available, opens the doors to so many more possibilities of what can we choose, and just listening to you guys talk as well, it was just like just the energy of choice. Like what if you could actually go away from today and just like gratitude and choose that? Like, how easy is that? Like, how easy is that to have gratitude? And what can that truly, what magic can show up, like in all areas, in our relationship, in our body, in our business, so it is a wonderful gift. And let's like, I get we've just tapped into it. So like, how much more can we all ask for? How much more can we really all ask for to have that gratitude?
Well, I'm going to shower you guys all with gratitude right now, because our time is up. Yep. And we have to jump into our next chapter. You guys are phenomenal. Thank you so much. And we'll see you back in just a few.
Yeah. Bye-bye.